Well, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the latest in my series of videos about how to pass an advanced bike test. And a little mini series within a series about cornering. In this one I'm going to look at speed assessment for corners. That's how to work out how tight or open a corner it is before you get there. Mostly using the limit point, but I'll go through some other observational clues that you might pick up that will help you assess how tight a corner is, because we don't always use the limit point. Sometimes you've got to view all the way through a corner, at which point the limit point becomes, well, pointless really. Limit pointless, you know what I'm talking about. So cornering, getting corners wrong, is by far the most common cause of single vehicle motorcycle accidents, or own goals, as they used to call them in the police. So when a motorcyclist just gets it wrong in a corner and falls off, and usually that's because they've got into a corner a bit too hot, a bit too quick. They fail to appreciate either how tight the corner is or the fact that the corner is tightening up, and they've left the road. Now, safer for you to do that on a right-hander, because if you're leaving the road on a right-hander, you're just going into the scenery. If you do it on a left-hander, you're in the hands of the luck gods as to whether you're going to hit something coming the other way or not. Either way, it's not a nice situation to end up in. It's really good to be able to learn the skills to assess the tightness, the speed of a corner before you get to it. So look at this one for instance. It's actually not as tight as it might have looked on the first approach, and all I needed to do was roll off the gas. But how have I assessed that before I've got there? Well, we've talked before about having good long forward observations, and cornering is one of those skills that really links in with good long forward observations. So one of the first things I want you to get your head around is that if the road goes left, look left, and if the road goes right, look right. So I'm looking right. Now I haven't got much of a view actually over that wall, but sometimes there might be a view of the road in the distance. Here the road goes left, so I'm looking left and I can see the wall line, I can see the vehicles in the distance before I get to the corner. So that's telling me, it's not telling me how sharp the corner is, but it's showing me the angle of the corner and giving me a clue how much speed I'll need to lose or otherwise on approach to that corner. Oh, cracking there today up here in the North Pennines. Here the road's going right, and I can just through the trees I've got a glimpse of the car that's in front of us going away. So I can sort of assess the angle of the corner before I get to it. Other clues, well, double white lines are a good clue. They tend to be put down on tighter corners where it will be inappropriate for somebody to cross the centre line. It's to encourage you to stay away from that centre line and avoid that conflict with oncoming vehicles. The road goes left, we look left, the road goes right, we look right. We're also looking for signage that will warn us how tight the bend is. Here we've got snow poles because we're getting quite high up in the North Pennines. They give you a nice early indication where the road's going. And up ahead I can see the road going from right to left. Can you see the wall line there and the snow poles? That's clearly our road. Here there's a sign warning us of a bend to the left. Remember what I said in the last video, where there's more paint there's more problems. So the more they warn us, the tighter the bend is. And that's a good warning for that one. There's an opportunity to overtake. Now another warning for a bend to the left. Now I can see a bend to the right, now I can see the bend to the left, and it's much tighter. So road signs gives a nice early indication as to what the issues are. You wouldn't believe how many people ignore road signs. You'll see people have gone off the road just after a big cluster of road signs warning you how tight the bend is. So pay attention to the road signs. Then we come to the limit point. Now the limit point is described in roadcraft as the furthest point you've got an uninterrupted view of the road surface. So let's find a bend here that will be ideal. There, I'm just going to pause the video there, and you will see that the limit point is about halfway around that left hand bend, and it's the point where the near side and offside verges or curbs or walls or hedges appear to meet. Now remember, in the previous video I told you that as well as applying system, there's an overriding safety rule for cornering, and that is that you've got to be able to stop on your own side of the road in the distance you can see to be clear. And that is the limit point. The limit point is the furthest point you can see. So on approach to a corner, the question shouldn't be how fast can I go around this corner, the question should be, can I stop? And that's the way you need to change your thinking. Don't go into a corner thinking, how far can I lean the bike over, how much speed can I carry around this corner? You've got to use your imagination and imagine that there's something stopped out of view just beyond that limit point. A car that stopped, a horse, somebody on a bicycle, something like that. And if you can stop before you reach that imaginary thing, then your speed is okay. Look at this right-hander. The limit point is just below the right-hand gate post, positioning near side. Now, actually, I can see all the way around this corner, but if we're imagining we're using that limit point, that's how I'm judging my speed into that corner. Can I stop if there's something just out of view that pops into view? It's really important, this. The biggest difference between cornering on the track, you're into track days, or you know, motorsport, that kind of stuff, and cornering on the road. On the track you haven't got anything else to worry about, there's nothing coming the other way, there's nothing potentially stopped. If there is, there's a marshal with a flag, all that kind of stuff. On the road there could be anything just out of view, and that's why we ask ourselves, can I stop? Not what's the speed going into this corner. Here I can see the road going to the right, but if you look to the right I can see some chevron boards going to the left. So we've got a bend to the right into a bend to the left. The limit point again is just under the right hand gate post there, and I can see as we get close to the corner that limit point starts to move. And let me talk about the movement of the limit point now. The limit point moves as we approach the corner. Now let's be clear, it doesn't actually move because it's not really there. It's just an optical illusion, I suppose, is the best way to describe it. But it appears to move in relation to us and our position on the road as we approach the corner. And we can use that movement to help us make a judgment again on how tight the corner is and what we should be doing. And the first thing the limit point does is it gets closer. Look at the limit point for this left-hander. I'm positioning correctly. The limit point is getting closer to us. Now it's starting to move, and now it's what I describe as stationary. So it's stationary because it's not getting any further away and it's not getting any closer to us. It's sort of moving away from us at the same rate as we're moving towards it. So the first movement of the limit point, like this left-hander here, is it gets closer. The second movement, if you want to call it that, is it remains static. It doesn't get any closer, it's not getting any further away. And the third movement is the limit point moves away from us. That's the last thing we're looking for as we're going through a corner, is the limit point moving away. That means the corner is straightening up and opening up, and we can be on the gas and accelerating and getting our eyes up looking for the next corner. So how do we use those movements? Well, first of all, the closer we get to the limit point, the tighter the bend is. So as that limit point gets closer and closer and closer and keeps getting closer, then we're going to slow down. We're on the speed phase of the system. Got our position correct, we're on the speed phase. But I want you to remember something. Going back to the position phase that we talked about in the last video, the earlier you get that position, the more advantage you'll get from it. I see some people, I'll try and give you an example. I saw this from a guy on test recently. So he would come up to a right-hander like this and then position near side right at the last minute, and then for this one, right at the last minute he'd move out. Well, you're losing the key advantage there because you're not getting the early view of the limit point. What we want to do is, as soon as up in the distance, if I can see the road's going left as it is, I'm going to move the position towards the centre line. That way I'll pick up movement in that limit point earlier. That's the real advantage of getting an early position into these corners. Here you can see it getting really close and I'm slowing down. Only when that limit point becomes static will I then come off the brakes and get the gear for the corner. So it gets closer and closer and closer. Now it's static, I'm off the brakes, the gear's okay, and a little bit of gas to take us round. So remember that. Get your position early, look for the movement of the limit point. Now the flip side of this is that a lot of corners, if you're riding along here, a lot of these corners are not particularly tight. Some of those back there, there's a couple of hairpins up here, but in between, most of these corners are not that tight. So if you keep a careful eye on the limit point, you might see some movement in it very early. And if we're seeing early movement in that limit point, it means, well, it may well mean that once you've got your position right, your speed and gear are okay. And all you then need to do is just roll on the gas around the corner. So again, massive opportunities by getting your position correct early on approach to corners in relation to that limit point. Look at this one here. It's starting to move now. I'm only doing 30, it's a 30 limit, but I haven't had to slow down for it. So focus on the limit point early, get your position correct early, and you'll get all these advantages. If you just trundle along and then wait till you get to a corner and then work it out when you're immediately on it, well, that's where you'll catch yourself out. That's where a bend will get you. And the third movement in the limit point is it moves away from you, and that's as the bend is straightening up, the limit point moves away, and sometimes it just goes away in a flash and disappears, and that's when we can be on the gas, bringing the bike up right again, getting it nice and stable, and accelerating away. So let's give you an example. When we get out to this 30 limit, let me give you an example of how we use that limit point to assess the speed for corners early on approach, and all the other clues as well. So I'm looking at signage, I'm looking at road markings, looking at cross views, early opportunities. So a bit frustrating this when you have to wait for that national speed limit, isn't it? But we're checking the mirrors, checking the shoulders, but where we go. So looking at the distance now, it's a good distance away, half a mile is it? It looks like the road's bending round to the right. So about here I'm going to start thinking about moving towards the near side. We're just checking for near side hazards as well. Don't want to move too far near side if there's anything there. And now I can see the limit point, and it's coming towards me at the moment. And now it's starting to move. And now it's moving, and I don't need to adjust my speed or my gear. I can just keep a little bit of positive gas on through the corner, keep the bike balanced. Slowing the road here towards the near side, but the limit point's rolling away from me. Now I'm moving towards the centre line to extend my view, and the limit point is just a constant distance, and then away. And as soon as it goes away, just back on the gas and up to the speed limit. Here we haven't got a view of the speed. We haven't got a view of the limit point. Can't see where the road's going, so I'm rolling off the gas on approach, down one gear, taking an offside position, extending my view, and then rolling back on the gas again. The distance, the road's going round to the right. So I'm positioning near side, just conscious of anything in these shadows that I don't want to hit. And now the limit point's gone. And now the road in the distance is going to the left, so immediately I'm moving up towards the centre line, looking for the movement of the limit point, and it's rolling away. It's rolling away nice and early, so I'm not to lose any speed. Just keep a little bit of positive gas on all the way around this corner, keeping my position towards the centre line. Here, centre line position, just pulling it back a little bit in case there's anything coming. Now there's chevron boards and somebody to the near side, so I can't go full the near side. Remember, we compromise our position for safety if we need to. So because of that chap stood near the road, I couldn't go fully near side. Looking through this bend, warning sign for falling or fallen rocks, and road narrows from the near side. So I'm keeping a centre line position here. Look at that limit point on the near side there. It's rolling away from me now. Now it's going round to the right, so I'm positioning near side. Limit point's rolling, I'm on the gas. And I'm directly linking that movement of the limit point away with my roll on of the gas. So extending my view into the distance, and this is a sharp one. Look how close that limit point is getting. First gear that. So you can see we're almost on that limit point before it started moving then. A very, very tight left-hand hairpin. Ask my mate Phil about that corner there. So we're going in towards the near side here, looking at the limit point, it's moving. Look how early early it moves. You get your position right, it can move very early sometimes. Here it looks a bit tighter, and here it looks much tighter, so I'm looking right. It's like a hairpin this, isn't it? Down to second, down to first, rolling on the gas. It's not often you go down to first, is it, for a corner, but it's appropriate there. Again, down to first, looking all the way through. Wow. We literally almost caught up with the limit point there, didn't we? So hopefully you can see there on a variety of different corners, some of those open and flowing corners, some of them really tight hairpins, that the limit point really helps us assess the tightness of corners. It isn't the only clue that we use. We're using other clues, but the limit point, it's really reliable. It reliably gives you an indication as to how tight that corner's been. So, what are the organisations looking for in relation to your speed assessment for corners? Well, look, we're not looking for TT race winners in the IAM and ROSPA, and the police aren't either. They're looking for riders who've got, first of all, a safe approach and a consistent approach in working out the speed for corners, but also we don't want people who are absolutely terrified and will slow down to a crawl for every bend. So we're looking to find a balance somewhere in between those. So, as I usually do, I'll go through the different organisations. So yeah, if you want to get a pass at IAM Road Smart, or you want to get a silver or bronze at ROSPA, well, you know, we want to see that you're making the right assessments on approach to corners. Some people are a little bit conservative with the speed assessment. That's alright at that level. If you want to get a silver, bronze, you want to get a pass, but you're conservative in your speed assessment for corners, that's fine. If you want to get a higher level pass, a gold at ROSPA, or a first at IAM, well, I want to see good confident speed assessment for corners. I want to see your head right up, looking out, up and through, and linking to the next corner, and linking to the next one after that, so you're not getting caught out by surprise by anything that's coming up. Above everything else, I want to see good early positioning, because that's what will give you an indication at an early stage how tight that corner is, or how open it is, or whether you need to do anything with your speed in your gear or not. For the police, well, again, consistency is the key with the police. Obviously you've got an exemption from speed limits, so whereas, you know, I'm driving today trying to limit myself within that national speed limit, police officers on bike courses don't need to do that, need to worry about that upper speed limit. But when you are using that exemption, it's very important that you get your eyes up and you assess the speed for corners early. Make early judgments, because on the one hand, yeah, you don't want to get caught out by a tight one when you're travelling at high speed, but the flip side of that is you don't want to be over braking for nice sweeping corners. You've got an exemption, so work with your instructor, focusing on that limit point. I'll be honest, I struggled with limit points when I first started doing it, police driver training. My instructor worked hard with me to explain it and help me in working out how tight corners were. Turned out actually I was already using the limit point, I just never put a name to it, and once they explained it to me properly, that was great. So I hope you found that useful. Remember, this is part of a little mini series about cornering, which fits into this broader series about how to pass an advanced bike test. So I hope you found it useful. Stuff in there anybody can use. You don't have to be doing a bike test to find this stuff useful. You just press the subscribe button, you'll get a notification when next time I upload a new video. Or visit the website reglocal.com, loads more information there about advanced and performance riding and driving. And give us a follow on Twitter as well, at reglocal. But for now, thanks for watching, hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.